Hello everyone, I'm Joshi Yogesh Kumar, and today basically I'm going to conduct a session on solar astronomy, and I'm going to cover up the introduction part as of now, and I hope to cover up the advanced version maybe next in the series. So today, just we are going up with the introduction, the fundamentals of solar astronomy. So this is the basic outline of my talk. So starting from the introduction to the sun, I'll be covering the basics of solar astronomy and few important observations. I'll show you the pictures of observations, and then I'll orally discuss about the solar telescopes. I don't have it in my slide, but I can explain you by oral. And then I'll show you, I'll update you about few solar observatories in India so that you will be aware of the facilities exist in India. And then there will be a question and answer session in which you can ask your opportunities. And before that, we'll end up by having a quick summary. So we'll start with the session now. So as we all know that our ancestors have been worshipping sun. Sun has been playing a very crucial role, not even in our lives, but even since long, and even before it started forming. So don't worry, I'm not going to talk about metaphysics over here, and I'm not trying to be a part of Ancient Alien series over here. So don't worry about that. So this is just to try to reconnect with the sun and with the present sun. So the basic difference with the present scenario of the sun we observe and the sun our ancestors used to pray is that the sun now is for filling up the stomachs of the current researchers, because they are basically observing, they are studying the sun, and our ancestors used to pray it. So that's the basic difference. So to start with, so I'm going to start with the very first thing, and that is the Big Bang, without which there would have been no astronomy and astrophysics, and there would have been no cosmology for sure. So, so the picture over here gives you a very basic idea about the Big Bang. So what we all believe through the observation is that there was a Big Bang once in a while, and since then, the universe started expanding. And the present day, the arrow over here in yellow, it shows the present day we are living in is roughly 14 billion years from the time of Big Bang. So that is a basic idea about the Big Bang. We know the Big Bang happened. We know the time, it was 14 billion years ago, but what this expansion of universe over here stands for. So I'm going to explain you the expansion of universe. So, okay, these were the pictures I wanted to show you guys. I don't know, I'm not sure if you might have, yeah. So these are the medieval pictures of the sun when our ancestors used to pray as in the form of God. And yeah. So the Big Bang, this is the arrow shows here the present. So this is the very basic picture of the Big Bang. I tried to surf up, and the time we all know that 14 billion years ago there was a Big Bang. So I switched to expansion of the universe. So I'll start with the expansion. So how astronomers came to know about the expansion of the universe, I'm going to tell you about that. So basically, back in 90s, Vesto Slipher, an astronomer, so he used to take spectra of spiral nebulae. So at that time, he took observations of around 25 spiral nebulas, and in that observation, he observed for the first time that the spectra of all the nebulae are being highly redshifted. So that was for the first time. So this you can say it. So that was for the first time any astronomer in the world has observed this red shifting of objects in the universe. And since then, all started competing about the expansion of the universe. and we all know up until now that the Hubble constant and all. So what exactly this redshift means? So I'll explain you the concept of redshift. So redshift basically when a nebula, okay, let's take a star. So when a star moves away from us, so it runs away from us, so it emits some light in our direction, right? So this makes the light waves we see expands, but the star which is running away from us, right, but it is emitting lights towards us. So basically the light which is emitting towards us is getting expanded, and as we all know, the if the light expands, the wavelength also expands. So because the wavelength is larger than the usual, so the light shift towards the red side of the spectrum, and hence we call it as the red shifted object. And the reverse is the case with the blue shift. So I'll explain you this with an example of a Doppler shift. Sorry. So over here, so we have a very popular example of ambulance. When an ambulance approaches us towards us, so the wavelength get compressed, and it ultimately results into the lower frequency sound. And sorry, the when the ambulance approaches us, so yeah, wavelength get compressed and ultimately result into higher frequency sound, so we hear it louder. And when ambulance it resides us, so there is less compression in the wavelength, and so it results into the lower frequency sound, so we don't hear it as louder as we hear when ambulance approaches us. So same is the case with the red shift and the blue shift. So when an object it approaches us, we see it as a blue shift, and when it resides from us, we see it as a red shift object. So as the astronomer Vestos Slipher, he observed all the spectra are being red shifted, and hence he came out with the observation that the universe is expanding because all the objects are moving away from the observer. So that is how the concept of redshift came into the picture for the first time. Now coming to our core topic, the solar astronomy. So we'll basically start with the spectral classification of the stars. So there are several classifications of star. So I'll just name it down so you can even see it. OBA, the first line, the first colorful line, OBAFGKM. So they are basically in the decreasing order of the temperature. So this is the spectral class, and the whole plot, this is Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. So it basically identifies the three main types of stars. I'll tell you now what are they. So first being in the main sequence. In the main sequence stars, there we know that our sun, you can see our sun, it lies in the main sequence stars. So most stars, including that our sun, are in the main sequence. So they are basically fueled by the thermonuclear fusion. So they basically convert hydrogen into helium, and for these stars, the lifespan they spend is roughly around 5 billion years. Then we are coming to the giants and the supergiants, which are just above the main sequence stars, as you can see. So, and I hope you can interrupt me in between if I am not audible and my presentation is not visible. So I'm sorry for the technical glitches. So now coming to the giants and supergiants, which is just above the main sequence stars. So as the star begins to die, so they become giants and supergiants. So this is a one of the fundamental thing in the astronomy and astrophysics. So now why they start to die? So the very fundamental thing is all these giants and supergiant stars, they start these stars like started depleting their hydrogen, which is an essential source of fuel for a star. So they are started depleting the hydrogen supply, and in that way they get very old and ultimately they die in form of supernovae or a planetary nebulae. Now coming to the third type of star, that is like these are white dwarfs. so that you can see just below the main sequence stars, yeah, just below the main sequence stars. So now when the main sequence, the smaller main sequence stars, just note down, when the smaller main sequence stars, they eventually get fainter, again because of lack of supply of the fuel. So they eventually get fainter, and they get dimmer, and ultimately even they become cold, dark, and they result into black or white dwarfs. So this is the basic understanding of Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. And then coming to our own sun and solar system. So the first question we asked is where we are located. So this picture describes it well. Our sun and the solar system is, we are located in the Orion spur of Milky Way galaxy, which is roughly, if I am right, it is roughly 450 billion light years away from the core of the galaxy. So don't worry, we are safe. We are not going to get collapsed in the black hole of our own galaxy. We still have a lot of time. And the next question we ask is, how big is our sun? So yeah, roughly the radius of our sun is 7 lakh kilometers, and very well picturized that by National Geography. Of course, I would like to courtesy of National Geography. So around 100 Earth would fit into the diameter of the sun. So this is a very basic reference how big our sun is. Now coming to the layers of sun. So starting from the corona being the uppermost layer of the sun, and the next line is the chromospheric line. With the next line, you can see the dotted line is the chromospheric line, and the third layer of the sun is the photosphere, and the convection zone, radiative zone, and the innermost being the core. Now let me tell you one thing. The core is the hottest part of the sun, which have temperature of around 27 million Fahrenheit. So that is one of the interesting thing, that the reason for the core being so hot is that all the I told you, the nuclear fusion, all the nuclear fusion occurs in this in the core, and ultimately through radiative and through convective zone it reaches to up to photosphere, and then chromosphere and the corona, and then it reaches all the energy reaches to our earth and to the solar system. So how the fusion process occurs in the corona, I'll tell you that. So this is a very complex reaction. It has been simplified in the further slide. I'll show you. So basically what happens is, under the sun's gravity, two hydrogen atom merges, and they fuse together to form a helium atom. So this ultimately results into release the higher form of energy in form of radiation, electricity, solar wind, and the light we are getting, light and heat we are getting on our earth. So this is the basic reason why the sun is so hot, and why it is consistently radiating. Moreover, I told you there is electricity. So where there is electricity, we all know that there will be magnetism, and therefore this proves that sun also have a very huge amount of magnetism as well. Now coming, due to that magnetism, there are several activities which occurs on the sun. So as I told you, I'm going to share a few pictures, and all the pictures, please note, they are the real pictures, they are not the artistic pictures. So mostly all the activities on the sun occur because of the changes in the magnetic flux line or in the temperature. So first activity being the sunspot. So sunspots are the temporary phenomena on the sun's photosphere. Photosphere, I told you, it is the third layer. Now, as we manually observe the sun through our eyes on a daily basis in the sky, So the layer we observe on this, the layer of sun we observe, that is the photosphere. So even though corona being the outermost layer, we observe the photosphere because photons are visible to our eyes from the photosphere only. So even through telescope, we observe the photosphere and the chromosphere sometimes. That depends on the wavelength we are using, wavelength we are observing. So this is the photospheric picture of the sunspots. So now the sunspots, they occur because of the temperature difference on the sun. Now what lead to the temperature difference on the sun? The main temperature, the temperature of the photosphere is roughly 5000 Kelvin. But the temperature of the sunspots it ranges from 3000 to 4000 Kelvin. The main reason for the temperature difference of the sunspot being the magnetic flux lines. Now, just a minute, I am taking you back to the layers of sun. Okay, so I told you the energy generates from the core. Energy generates from the core, and through radiative zone it transfers to the convective zone, right? And from convective zone it transfers to the photosphere of the sun, and then it reaches to upper layer, chromosphere and the corona. But to reach the photosphere of the sun, it need to pass through two zones, radiative and convective zones. And the thing is, yeah. So now magnetic field lines. So some on the photosphere, magnetic field lines it penetrates, it accumulates in such a large amount that it restricts the convective functioning uh, of the sun, and therefore the temperature from the convective zone it could not able to reach to the until the photosphere. And that is the reason being sunspots being so cold as compared to that of the photospheric temperature. Now, sunspots usually appear in the pair of opposite magnetic polarity. So, in the bottom picture, you can see sunspot having plus and minus the opposite polarity. So, like we have performed that magnetic experiment, one being north and one other being south poles, and the magnetic field lines being traveling from north to south, right? So same happens over here in case of the sun and even the sunspots. So all the magnetic field lines which generally occur near to the sunspot, so they are over these magnetic polarities. Also, there is one specialty about sunspot. They mostly occur in the groups in which among which one being the fundamental, one being the leader sunspot, and another being the followers. So these the jumbo size sunspot you can see, they are the leaders, and the rest, the smaller sunspot group you can see, they are the followers. So this being one of the fascinating activities which fascinates the scientists. Another being the solar filaments. So solar filaments are this thread-like structures which we observe on the sun. They are the solar filaments. Now they occur again whenever there is magnetic field lines across any sunspot group, there will be some amount of plasma traveling through that magnetic field lines, which get accumulated on that magnetic field lines, and in some cases it stays stable over that lines, and therefore it becomes colder. And again, due to temperature difference, we see it as darker lines, this thread-like structure. So basically, the dark region, even in the sunspot, and even in the case of solar filaments, the darker region we see, that is because of the difference in the temperature. So over here, the sunspots are cooler, and in this case, the filaments are cooler because they are one step above the photosphere. They are into the chromosphere. So photosphere being 5000 Kelvin and chromosphere is somewhat less cooler than that of photosphere. So all these filament, it ranges in the chromosphere, so they get colder, and therefore we clearly see the difference in the filaments and the photospheric observations. Now coming to the third active region, that is solar prominence. Solar prominences are nothing but they are the filaments which are visible on edges, I mean the limb of the sun. Now what are the limb? Limb are the edges, the circular at the circumference of this sun basically. So as you can see, the prominence over here on the right bottom and the on the left picture, right? So these are the prominences, and when they are on the disk, they appear as this filament structure. So this is just the activity being the same, this is just the difference of naming. So now coming to the fourth, solar flares. So solar flares are the sudden brightening on the surface of the sun. So what actually happens, you saw this prominences, right? So they are into the stable state now. So in some cases what actually happens, due to some instabilities, these magnetic field lines across this plasma, they get unstable and they releases all this plasma into the in form of this flares, and hence we see the sudden brightening because the plasma which due to instability, the plasma which was accumulated on the surface on the magnetic field lines, it reaches back to the surface, and we see this sudden brightening kind of thing. So that is due to instability in the magnetic field line, we see solar flares. Now coming to another activity, that is coronal mass ejection. Coronal mass ejection is nothing but a kind of a flare which ejaculates tons of plasma into the space. So in case of flares are the small activities, while in case of coronal mass ejection, it ejaculates tons of plasma into free space, and that plasma ultimately ionizes the surrounding of our Earth, and also reaches until Saturn and till end of the solar system. So this impacts our planetary atmosphere, and therefore study of coronal mass ejection is a very crucial thing in the solar astronomy and astrophysics. Now coronal mass ejection gives rise to aurora formation on the Earth. So how it gives rise to aurora formation, I'll tell you. So as the coronal mass ejection emits from the sun, it ionizes the surrounding of the sun, and it also releases tons of plasma towards the day side of the sun. Now thank God that we are protected by the heavy magnetic field lines across our Earth, but this plasma, it travels to through these magnetic field lines, it travels to poles of the Earth, and poles being the weaker, it penetrates particles, the charged particles into the atmosphere of Earth, and therefore we see the auroras in the polar regions of Earth. And now there was some fascinating activity also observed on the sun. Like we have earthquakes, there are solar quakes on Earth. So that was some fascinating activity observed by SOHO satellite. The one possible explanation of this solar quakes given by the scientist was due to instability when the plasma prompts up, but it do not emits out in the free space because of the sun's heavy gravity. So it falls back to the photosphere of the sun, and ultimately that fallback creates the ripples, and that sudden fallback gives rise to the solar quakes on the photosphere of the sun. So that this was one of the possible explanation given by scientists. But this was something interesting observed, similar to that of Earth's atmosphere. That is something interesting. Now coming to solar observatories in India, but before that, as I told you that I'm going to tell you about the solar telescopes. So the basic difference between the solar telescopes and the normal stellar telescopes, they are almost the same, even the configuration being the same. The only basic difference between the telescope, the solar telescope and this normal stellar telescope is that solar telescope uses filter. Moreover, they need more coolant because they are 24 hours they are observing the sun. I mean, not 24 hours, since the day till the sun sets, they constantly observes the sun. So that heats them up. So then, so the solar telescope constantly need coolants, and filters are required because so that they observe the sun in a particular particular filter. And in case of stellar telescopes, stellar they don't have filters, like they have specific filters, but not the kind of which we use in the solar telescopes. So this being the basic difference, while configuration being the same, Newtonian, Gregorian, configuration of all the telescope remains the same. Now coming to the solar observatories in India, the first being the most historic observatory, Kodaikanal Solar Observatory, which was like established during the rule of East India Company and established by them. So it is roughly around 120 years old. And I'll tell you one more thing. They have conserved the sunspot data more than 100 years. It has been conserved at the Kodaikanal Solar Observatory. So this is one of the good thing. Another observatory being Udaipur Solar Observatory, governed by Physical Research Laboratory of Ahmedabad. So this is in between the Fateh Sagar Lake. I'm not sure if I hope I'm right. In between, it's a kind of island, and so that the temperature of solar telescope, as I told you, it do not get higher due to the humidity around the telescope all the time. Another telescope being at Aries, Nainital. So they have a solar section which mostly people are not aware of. So this institute being a good start for those who would like to pursue a career in astronomy and astrophysics. Okay, so this is Gauribidanur radio spectrograph. So they basically observe sun not in the optical but in the radio aspect. The radio sun. So radio. So my talk on radio maybe we'll plan some another time. Radio is another interesting aspect. So these antennas, LPDA, log periodic dipole antenna, they observe sun 24 hours. Another telescope, so this is a proposed telescope, NLST at Leh in India. So by various institutes, this is going to be one of the most most advanced telescope of its kind. Now this is Aditya L1 mission. This is planned to launch by end of 2020, and it is the payloads are under construction. So this being the space observatory, this will be launched by ISRO. So this will have around 5 to 6 payloads which will observe in different wavelengths. Okay. So now few solar activities for you guys. You can try during lockdown sitting at your home. So this is a slide from one of the outreach slide from the last meeting I have attended at IUCAA. So there is a section of IUCAA science popularization. So basically, they perform several population activities like Zero Shadow Day. We are approaching to Zero Shadow Day in May, around 15 to 16 May. I'm not sure of dates, but in May we'll be having a Zero Shadow Day in India as well. So you can just have a look at it. So they perform several. They have several activities. Even they conduct telescope making activities and the various public talks and workshops on solar related to solar projects, and even general astronomy and astrophysics. So you can visit this website of Science Popularization of IUCAA, and you can check for the related program of your interest. Another being the Zooniverse project of Solar Stormwatch. Basically, you have to search for these storms on sun. So as I told you, the flares, the sudden brightening. So you need to mark the brightening happening on the sun, and you have to submit it. And this is kind of citizen project. So you can be a part of it, and you can invest time in that. Another being, okay, we at IASC, we have come up with another project, our solar siblings, in which you will be, if you will participate, you will be provided with the astronomical data, and you will be assigned some task to search for the just a moment, yeah, to search for the let's say few of the stellar or the solar objects, like the solar activities happening on sun. You'll be provided image with context to that, and you have to submit report to IASC, and probably you will have possible discoveries of your findings. So this is basically a newly designed project for schools and college students. So you can try your hands with this. Another interesting thing is that the Stanford Solar Center is providing a Super SID monitor. So they are providing it for free of cost at several locations. They are not charging even a penny to provide this monitor. The monitor you can see over here. You simply have to visit this website. You have to click on obtaining a monitor, and you have to fill up a basic form, and few things they'll be asking you guys, and you can order this monitor. So what this monitor will do is, just a minute, I'll going back to the CME slide. Yeah. So what this monitor is designed as it is named Super SID. So SID stands for sudden ionospheric disturbances. So as we know, coronal mass ejection, it ionizes the atmosphere around the Earth. So we have ionosphere over here. So it ionizes the ionosphere. So we will able to observe the even the smaller deflections in the ionosphere due to this coronal mass ejection through that monitor. So basically, we need to design. I'm sorry. We need to design a telescope. We need to design basic antenna, a loop antenna. So that is a very easy task, which will be guided by them. And you need to connect this monitor with your antenna, and you are all set to observe the ionospheric deflections. So this is very interesting activity you can perform. You can also pursue it as your research, as your personal research. This will be very fascinating thing to do. So this is a very one page very quick summary of the sun. So the sun was born around 4.65 billion BCE from overweight exploded parents, and the sun says that I was clumped into a fast spinning spheroid with umbilical disc. So basically there was a cloud of dust and gas, and it was in a form of a disc, and in between that process, the sun formed, and planets around the sun, ultimately the solar system formed. So it giving shriveled into 8 to 9 small children, which means planets, and the doctors being on kid 3. Kid 3 is our Earth, and the doctors over here means the scientists, the PhD holders, the researchers. And the sun says, I can't abide the electrical field because of the free charge. So the sun has been stated as the plasma state. So we all know why it is plasma, because it is in the form of gas, and the gas is the ionized gas. So so we say it as we call it as a plasma, a ball of plasma. The sun says that I was born with a magnetic field because due to the thermonuclear fusion, as I told you, that sun have electricity, and where there is electricity, there will be magnetism. So sun have a very huge amount of magnetic field, so which ultimately results into spinning of the sun, and which ultimately also result giving rise to the sunspots, as I explained. Now this thing I didn't covered in my slide, in my presentation. The sunspot appears every 11 years, and the doctors worry about my spots because the sunspot being the very fascinating thing for the researchers to study, because it was first observed by the Galileo, and since then we have the observations of more than around 150 years. And in all the observations, it has been observed that the sunspot activity, it ranges from with the 11 years solar cycle. So that was one interesting observation. I would like to cover this maybe in my next talk in the series. And the sun says that the first spot on it was observed in 1859, and that was by Galileo, right? So he was one of the intelligent doctor. So now that was all for today, and you are welcome to ask any questions if you have. Yeah, feel free to talk. I hope
so. Everyone can write their questions on their chat section so that our sir can pick up the questions and answer for you, or else we will pick up for you if you want. You all can use the chat section.
Can square kilometer array be used for? Yes, square kilometer array can be used for solar observation. And even I forgot to mention that we have GMRT in India near Pune. I would like to know about more. Okay, so I'll answer all the questions one by one. Don't worry. So even GMRT near Pune, it is a radio telescope, observes in the beta wavelength. So they also conduct the solar observations. So that is sun can be observed in radio as well. So sun is the only, mostly sun is the only object in the universe. I should not say it for sure, but yeah, that emits in multi-wavelengths. Sun can be observed also in ultraviolet, and also in infrared, and optical, and even in radio. So there was one question, just a moment. Yeah, so ultimately it can be also observed by square kilometer array. That is not a moreover, by square kilometer array, we will have more opportunities to observe it in different frequencies. That will give us more amount of data, solar data. Yeah. Any more question? Sir, how will estimate the atmosphere? Okay, how you will estimate the atmosphere of exoplanets? Okay, right. So that is into the planetary aspect, the planetary science. I'm not sure how the atmosphere over the planets, like moon or moon, I can answer, but I'm not sure about the other planets. But I can tell you about the influence of sun on that planets. Okay, what are exoplanets? Okay, so why sunspots are so fascinating? So this is I kept on like just adding this point during my talk that sunspots are like fascinating to observe. So why sunspots are so fascinating? The reason is sunspot they in the sun on the sun sunspot they start forming on the polar sides of the sun, and with the time they end up coming at the center of the sun, like towards the center of the sun with the rotation, right? So, yeah. So that also like has a correspondence with the 11 years cycle, the solar cycle, as I told you. So that is one of the interesting thing that what is the thing that is like giving rise to this 11-year cycle and why only 11 years? These are few questions which scientists are still pondering upon. Okay, why only 11 years? That is the question I'm not sure. Why are they present on the sun? Okay. So why corona has a more temperature? Okay, that this is a good thing. So why corona? So that this actually this is one of the things. This is violating the existing thermodynamic laws because starting from the core, the temperature should have like the temperature is keep on decreasing, right? And at photosphere it reaches 5,000 Kelvin, but suddenly in the corona it suddenly reaches it crosses around like more than the 8 or 10,000 of 10,000 Kelvin, right? So this is still like this is still unanswered, and this is again violating the law of thermodynamics that how suddenly the temperature in the corona is rising. So there were many questions at the time. I could not able to read all the questions. You can ask just a moment. Basically, the aurora borealis is formed due to corona. Yeah, due to not because of coronal mass ejection, but because of these uh, ionized particles which penetrates through the poles on our Earth. Is there any other explanation of beginning of the universe? Yeah, there are other various like explanations of beginning of the universe, but as of now, from the observations, as of now from the observations carried out, the one of the most firm observation is this that the universe is expanding because whatever things we observe in the universe is residing from us. We see it as red shifting. So this is one of the firm explanation which scientists are believing on. Okay, share your educational journey, sir. Okay, educational journey. I'll tell you at last. Can you explain what is aurora formation? If you can explain in brief. Okay, so I mentioned in my presentation that auroras are formed due to the charged particles which penetrate through the poles of the Earth. So the charged particles, as we have the magnetic field lines on the as we have magnetic field line on the sides of the sun, on all the sides of the sun on Earth. So the only way the charged particles can penetrate through Earth's atmosphere is through through the poles because that is the only way where the magnetic field lines penetrate. Sir, please share the PPT with us. Yes, sure, I'll share PPT. I'll mail it to the organizer and they'll share it with you guys. What is the center of Milky Way galaxy? Okay, what is the center of Milky Way galaxy? So the center being the black hole. The center of Milky Way galaxy is the black hole, and mostly all in all the galaxies, The center is the black hole. Send the PPT on mail. Yes, sure. I'll share it with organizers, and they'll organizer have your mail ID, so he'll share with you guys. So what is the basically reason for randomness? What is basically the reason of randomness of sunspots of the surface? Means why do sunspot occur only at some places on the surface? Okay, so there is no as such defined place for the sunspots to occur. They can randomly occur at any place where there is a huge amount of collection of the magnetic field lines, or where there is very less temperature as compared to that of photosphere. So there is no fixed place, but the most of time the observations has been carried out that the sunspot are occurring on the poles, and they are coming ending their life coming towards the center of the earth, sun. So this is one of the common observation. Anyone else?
More I think most of the questions are answered, right?
Sorry?
Would you like to pick up more questions, or shall we?
There are questions. There are few questions related to cosmology. Okay, they are asking about Big Bang, expanding universe, which path. So yeah, can you throw some light upon the shape of the universe? Okay, so universe do not have a defined shape. It do not have a defined shape. So only the Big Bang, the Bell diagram we say. So that is that relates to the Big Bang. That do not relates to that the shape of the universe. Universe do not have the shape. It is unidentical. Yes, so we have magnetic field, so we survived. But what happened in moon? Okay, so as we have a magnetic field, we survived from the coronal mass ejection. But what happened on the moon? So I just saw this documentary, like landing of Neil Armstrong on the moon. So he was like continuously trying to convey to the NASA headquarters when I was watching the documentary that the soil around him is dancing. So for that, the reason is that the moon do not have the magnetic field lines, the soil on the moon, it get ionized, and therefore the soil we see on the moon, that is the reason that we see it in a form of the dancing kind of thing. So some moon don't even have atmosphere. Sir, what are Lagrangian points? Lagrangian points are the stable points stable points in the universe which do not interfere with any of the gravitational push-pull with the heavenly bodies. So Lagrangian points at that points there are 5 Lagrangian points. So at that points they are stable, and there is no push and pull of the gravity from any other planets.
Sir, so can everyone hear my voice?
Yes.
Is it audible? Yeah, so as we are running out of time, so I'm sorry to interrupt in between.
Yes.
So everyone, we will share you the mail ID of Yogesh sir, so you can continue to post some queries and your concerns there. And also we would invite Yogesh sir on our website to be a site member. So there is a forum on our website where you can post your questions and concerns related to space science. So anytime whenever Yogesh sir is free, he can answer it there. So I would be really glad if you all use that platform, and that platform is totally free of cost. So don't think of any membership cost or anything. So we will share you all the details, and as some people were asking about the website and things, so we will send you all the details about all the IAC website and whatever the sir has mentioned. Also, we will be uploading this recording of the video on YouTube. So anyone of you who wants to revisit the content which sir described today, you can easily access from our YouTube channel, Spaconova. So I hope this session was very much fruitful for everyone, and I hope sir has also enjoyed this webinar, and I hope, sir, it was a great experience for you too.
Thank you so much.
So we shall end the meeting here, and thanks to everyone for joining us here at the webinar. And our next session, next series is going to come on 3rd May, and there will be another one in 2nd May too. So we all hope to see you live there too. So thank you everybody. Have a nice day.